us? Kalispera σας. Kalispera σας. And good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight on this special evening that we're really honoured to be hosting alongside White Ribbon Australia. A few months ago, Penny Marangos, who is a board member of Victorian branch of White Ribbon Australia, approached me and said, how about we do something together, a collaboration between the Greek Community of Melbourne and White Ribbon Australia. And we had all these aspirations, and of course, like everything else, COVID sort of changed our plans. So I am a little disappointed we're not at the Greek community to meet you, Brad, in person, and Simone, to have you there and to welcome you to our Greek Centre. But we're here, and this is the start of many initiatives we hope as the Greek Community of Melbourne will do with you, White Ribbon Australia. Penny, your dedication to this cause is next to nothing. Thank you for enlightening me and the board and helping us to understand the main issues and the concerns many people, so I won't just say women, face with this other pandemic that is unfortunately quite prevalent in Australia. Brad, hi, Brad Chilcott, the Executive Director at White Ribbon Australia. I so wish we met in person before this, but the time will come and we will have you at the Greek Centre. Simone O'Brien, thank you for sharing your journey with us here tonight. We feel so honoured that you chose us to share this and to help us understand the issue and educate our community. Thank you so much. We owe you a big bunch of flowers, and we will make sure we do that. There'll be a Q&A session that will follow the talk. So please submit your questions through the channels, through Facebook, wherever you're watching this. And Simone and Brad are here to answer any of your questions. So thank you for allowing the Greek community to be part of this, White Ribbon Australia. And over to you, Penny. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Firstly, I would like to thank Tammy Iliou for your, so I'm basically giving it right back to you, Tammy. Essentially, tonight would not be possible without you. So I wanted to say a very big thank you to you for your unwavering support, for leading from a place of integrity, for walking the talk and being an excellent role model, not only to me, but to everybody in our community, okay? I'd also like to mention that because of you, we are establishing an ongoing collaboration between White Ribbon Australia and the Greek community. So you've been integral in that whole process, and we are looking forward to doing further work with you. I also wanted to make a very special mention of the people at the GCM, the behind the scenes people. So I want to make a special mention of Cassandra and Gostas. Basically, every request that I put through was actioned within 24 hours. They're a professional, reliable group of people, and I would have no problem, no hesitation in working with them going forward. So I want to thank everybody at the GCM for everything they've done to make tonight possible. I also wanted to make a very special mention of White Ribbon Ballarat and Jade Haitley, who is also on the Victorian Committee, for sponsoring the event tonight. So without them, basically we wouldn't have been able to have somebody as high calibre as Simone here tonight, somebody as high profile, I mean, somebody as experienced in this field. So I really appreciate White Ribbon Ballarat for their support of our event. So Tammy's already covered the general housekeeping around the fact that we're doing a Q&A at the end, but I just wanted to say that if at any point during tonight's discussion you have a question that you wanted to ask, I encourage you to put it in the chat box, and we will be filtering all of the questions that come through and making sure that at the end when we go through the Q&A, that we cover all of the key questions that come up. So between Simone and Brad, basically we'll be hoping to cover all of the questions that are raised. So I just wanted to make a couple of key points. We know that gendered violence is caused by gender inequality. And I really wanted to urge all of the listeners here tonight to do the sort of deep introspection work while you're listening around where is there gendered power imbalances in your own interpersonal relationships, in your workplace, in your community, and what do we need to do to address those issues? Because that's the crux of why we're here today. I also wanted to say that this space is flooded with female voices because, and the reason that that's happening is because, female voices have been suppressed for so long. And I really wanted to encourage the inclusion of male voices in this discussion, because I can tell you that without men in this discussion, we are not going to be effective in making any type of sustained change. So what I wanted to do is hand over to Brad Chilcott, the Executive Director of White Ribbon Australia. And basically, Brad is representing the male voice here tonight in terms of the cause. So thank you, Brad. Okay.
No worries. Thank you, Penny. I'm Brad Chilcott, as you've heard, the Executive Director of White Ribbon Australia, which is now 14 months into our new chapter. I live, work and play on the lands of the Kaurna people, now known as Adelaide. And right now I'm on the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara people, now known as Brisbane. So I pay my respects to the elders of the lands that I live on and that I'm on now, and also to the lands of the people that you're on. And it's really essential that we remember the privilege many of us enjoy came at great cost to other people, that sovereignty was never ceded, and that injustice continues to this day. And as we are speaking about gendered violence and inequality tonight, we also know that these are issues that disproportionately impact on First Nations people experiencing the ongoing impact of colonisation and discrimination. But thank you so much for having me with you today, Penny, Costa, Tammy, Simone, everyone online. It's so good to be here, and I want to thank you for your leadership in the Greek community and beyond in Melbourne, and a special thanks to White Ribbon Ballarat and Jade for putting this together. And I know we've also got Bryony Rowlands, our Senior Manager of Community Engagement online, who's done a lot of work behind the scenes too. Also just wanted to, before I get into it, let you know I'm particularly thinking of you in Victoria, experiencing lockdowns for such a long period of time, in and out, I know, and how hard it is with the uncertainty about when it may all end. So I've got the privilege of usually being in Adelaide, where we've been in lockdown only a couple of times very briefly. So our hearts are with you, and we are thinking of you across Victoria. But as I said, we're now 14 months into this new chapter of White Ribbon Australia under the custodianship of Communicare. And some of you who have known White Ribbon may have seen some of the changes to the way this movement operates in this chapter, as we seek to mobilise every part of our society to advance gender equality and to end all forms of men's violence and abuse. And I guess one of the key things for me is the development of clear pathways for people, communities and workplaces in Australia to take meaningful action that will help create a future where women and children can finally be safe from all forms of men's violence and abuse. And looking back on history, I guess we recognise that incredible female activists have worked for decades to get gendered violence on the national agenda, to bring family and domestic violence out of the shadows. And when White Ribbon arrived in Australia as part of a global movement that started in Canada, it supported this work, and governments, workplaces, sporting clubs, community groups, and tens of thousands of individuals added their voice, started to talk publicly about the terror being experienced in Australian homes and the gender inequality that's been mentioned already, that gives space for men's disrespect of women to be excused and then passed on generation to generation. But I think what's changed over the last decade is this, or decades, we are now aware. We know that more than one woman a week is murdered by their current or former male partner. We know that sexual harassment is rife in our workplaces, even all the way up to federal parliament. We know that women don't feel safe doing things that men like me just take for granted. And we know that police are called out to family violence incidents once every 2 minutes across Australia, and only 20% of incidents are ever reported. We know that gender inequality is structural violence that leads to women being trapped in abusive relationships through financial insecurity, cultural pressure, and men using the power and privilege that we were born into to control and to dominate. So we know what we need to do now is think about what we are going to do about it. Of course, we need governments to make sure women's safety services have adequate funding to meet demand. Of course, we need paid family violence leave as a universal right. Of course, we need more social housing and emergency accommodation. Of course, we need reform in the family court system. And of course, corporations and other workplaces can do a lot better when it comes to sexual harassment and a culture that disrespects women. But there's something that's actually required of each one of us. Preventing men's violence against women requires all of us to be a part of the solution. And so I quickly want to speak to my fellow men, because it's going to take more than awareness of the problem, more than a pledge, more than a ribbon, more than coming to a webinar. And of course, not all of us use violence in our relationships, but if every one of us would pause with some humility to self-reflect on hearing the facts that we all know, it would go a long way to start creating change in Australia. Thinking about things like, am I communicating in a way that shows deep respect to the people that I say I love? Or if my partner tried to control my behavior, who I talk to, what I wear, where I go, like I sometimes influence theirs, how would I feel? Take a moment with humility to listen to and learn from the women around you in your family, in your workplace, in your community, and pause to think about whether you contribute to a culture that privileges the opinions, the ambitions, and the desires of men over that of women. Secondly, for all of us, I'm asking every one of us to get involved in ending men's violence and abuse, community by community and workplace by workplace. Consider our own role in creating change. Men's violence against women is happening in our communities, in our workplaces, and every one of us can be a part of changing that. We know that communities, whether they're geographic, faith-based, multicultural, sporting, or other communities, best understand their own challenges and how to engage men and boys in the process of change. And so we're asking that events like this aren't ends in themselves, but they're catalysts for action. And we've already heard Penny and Tammy talk about that. This year, with our community engagement team, led by Bryony, who I mentioned earlier, we're asking people to establish community action groups in communities across Australia to continue work beyond these events, identifying opportunities to prevent violence and advance gender equality that will work in your unique community, and then pooling your collective commitment, creativity, and energy towards creating change. We've also created a new community response fund. The idea is that people or organisations donate to this fund, and then around twice a year we open up grant rounds for anyone doing local community-led violence prevention activities to apply to it, because we want to be able to support communities who are taking the lead on ending men's violence against women in a way that will work for them. So I started with the idea of not just being aware of the problem of men's violence against women, but taking action. And to finish, I'm just going to give you 3 actions you could take as a result of today. Number 1, sign up as a community partner with White Ribbon Australia. That's our new way of getting individuals involved in this movement, learning about how they can become good allies, good bystanders and change makers in their everyday lives at home, at work, at play. People of any gender can become a community partner, so I'd love to invite you to be one of them. Secondly, start a community action group in whatever community you're a part of. It could be a geographic community, a sporting club, people who share the same occupation. It could be the Greek Community of Melbourne. The idea is wherever there are people ready to develop a community-led, community-designed response plan to address men's violence against women, that's a great place to start a community action group. And thirdly, support the Community Response Fund and help us support communities to ensure women are safe from all forms of men's violence and abuse. You can find out more about that at whiteribbon.org.au. To finish, just going to say it's not enough to be aware. It's not enough to think men's violence is bad. It's not enough to want it to change. It's not enough to hope someone does something about it. It's going to take all of us, every single one of us, community by community, workplace by workplace, school by school, to end men's violence against women together. So thank you very much for having me, and I can't wait to hear from you, Simone, as well.
Hello, and thank you so much to the Greek Community of Melbourne for having me involved tonight. It's such an honour, and I'm disappointed I'm not there in person because I would have loved to, you know, I suppose the power of my story is a lot better in person, but I'll get it across tonight as well. But yeah, at any time I'd love to be involved with you if your doors are open for me. I to be honest, knew absolutely nothing about domestic violence prior to what I'm going to show you tonight, and I didn't even know who White Ribbon Australia were. And it was actually how I got involved with White Ribbon Australia was probably about 6.5 years ago now, and it was actually a gentleman that said, would you like to be involved in White Ribbon Australia? And I said, I don't know nothing about it, but I said, sure. And, you know, I had his trust that it was going to be okay, whatever he was guiding me down the lines of doing. And this was after that I had been assaulted, which I'm going to show you. And so I'm honoured to be involved with White Ribbon Australia and over the years in what I've done. And now I am more than happy and I'm honoured to be a part of the Greek community. And thank you for having me tonight. I was born and bred in a little country town in Victoria, and I'm actually in Victoria as I present tonight. But at the age of 37, I'd had 3 children, and I was actually living in Brisbane. If you want to go to the first slide, please. Next one. Thank you. And I had 3 children. Obviously, I've got Gabby is the blonde on my left, Zach is in the middle, and Ashlyn's the brunette on the right-hand side of your screen. And at the age when Gabby was 1, I actually left Victoria with her biological father at the time, and we moved to Queensland. And we went on to get married and had 2 further children up in Queensland. And at my age of 37, and the children at that age were 15, 12 and 10. I was a single mum, but I'd actually separated from their biological father Zach was only 2.5 years old. And that separation from their biological father was no domestic violence then at all. It was that we were too young and had too much money. And he wanted to take me away all the time. Let's go here, let's go to Fiji, you know, let's go to the races. But the children were never involved. And so when Zach got to the age of 2.5, I said, no, I just want to be a mum. And so we did. We separated amicably. And so I then went on being a single mum till Zach was 10 years old. And I was the age of 37 then. And they were, obviously the children were self-sufficient. They could cook, clean if I wanted them to, and da-da-da. And I actually worked 2 jobs in Brisbane to make ends meet because Gabby was actually a state basketballer. And I travelled into the CBD, which was a half-an-hour train ride of Brisbane each day because I worked at Transport and Main Roads. And doing that was fine, and Gabby was 15, and I sort of thought maybe I'm 37, and am still young enough to have, you know, a male partner in my life. And I thought, oh, you know, what am I going to do? And so anyway, I'm not real tech savvy at all, but I thought I'm not a person to go out to pubs and clubs and, you know, do that. I love being a mum. So anyway, I got onto the dating site and I was, you know, flicking through the dating site and reading through, and up on my screen popped a real estate agent, and it was like a light bulb come through my brain. And I'd actually been into real estate when you know, just prior to children were being born, and I thought, he's got to have a police check. He's got to be okay, because to get your real estate license, you need to have a police check. So that was my safety zone, I suppose you could say, that because he was a real estate agent, he had a police check, this gentleman was going to be okay. Anyway, so I clicked on him and we started texting at night, and it was always at 9:30 at night, because still once I like to get home from work and like between my two jobs and make sure the children they were still my priority, you know, feeding them, homework and, you know, downtime. So that was okay. So we started texting at 9 o'clock at night. And then he said, can I ring you after about 6 weeks? And I said, yeah, okay. Still, again, that was my own thing, was 9 o'clock at night. I wasn't putting anyone over my children. And then moving forward, he said, can we go on a date? And I said, yeah, sure. I said, I'll have to, even though Gabby was 15, I still wanted to organise a babysitter. Not actually a babysitter. It was more like a 20-year-old friend that would come and, you know, look after sit with the children while I was there. And so that was fine. That happened. And he came to my door and picked me up, and he greeted me with a bunch of flowers. And I thought, oh, wow, this is nice. Anyway, we went off and had dinner, and he paid for dinner that night, which I thought was really good. You know, I enjoyed the night, and he dropped me home. And then, you know, obviously the children were at my house, and that was okay. So we started doing little date things like that. And then he, you know, said, can we get in a relationship? And obviously I was a bit skeptical, but I said, yeah, okay, I'll give it a go. I'd, you know, had the support of family and friends and whatnot. So then obviously he started meeting my friends, and this is where little red flags started to grow in my relationship, which, because I hadn't been in a relationship for you know, obviously a long time, you know, over 7-8 years, little things stood out to me really, really quite horrible in my tummy. So we'd go out for dinner, and you know how most places are, you know, one bill per table. So, you know, you've got to, you know, collect the money and can't separate it, etc. So on the way there, he'd always say, oh, I forgot my wallet, which I thought, well, that's okay, because they were my friends. So I just thought, well, I'll put it on my card and, you know, they'll give me the cash. So that was happening. But then the cash was going missing. And I would say to Zach, I say, mate, you know, because he was so much younger, I said, I can't afford tuck shop. Please don't take money out of my wallet. And he's looking up at me going, Mummy, it wasn't me. I didn't, you know. And I knew deep down he wasn't a kid to do that, because it had never happened. But I had to sort of discipline him because it was happening. And then it started going on to my phone. And obviously, you know, working 2 jobs and 3 children, your phone is always going off, you know, can Gabby come here, or can Ashling stay the night, So you're always on the phone to friends and family. And in that time, the short time that I was with him, my contacts were deleted at least 5 to 6 times. I totally restored my phone. And I once again, poor Zach, I'd say, mate, don't play with my phone if you're going to delete my contacts. I can't have that, you know, I need my contacts. And that was okay. So I got over that after grounding Zach again. And then I was changing my phone. And I know these might seem like little red flags, but my emphasis on them is we need to look out for any little red flag. And your SIM card in your phone, then I was upgrading my phone, and he was downloading my text, all my phone numbers onto my new phone, and he took my SIM. And he came back to me and he goes, oh, they can't download it. Your SIM's split in half. And I knew it wasn't, because I'd just taken it out of my phone. So these were all little red flags growing up that I was putting together. And then obviously he realised my job with the government meant a lot to me. And he knew that he hadn't been able to meet any of my work colleagues. And so then he started sending me flowers to work, not just one bunch every, 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. It was every day. It got to this stage, this 1 week, I was so embarrassed that I got all these flowers. I felt sick. And I thought, what am I going to do? Because he was just controlling me in the workplace to let my work colleagues know that I was in a relationship. So anyway, after a period of 9 months, that's all the relationship was for, I said to a friend on Saturday, the 24th of September, 2012, I said to her, how do I get out of this relationship now that I've got in it, and I just need your help? She said, let's do it on Monday when the children are dropped off at school. Do you know what? It was like a relief off my shoulder that someone else knew. And just remember, at this time, I knew totally nothing about domestic violence. I'd never seen it with my parents or my sisters or any, my close family. Domestic violence, I admit I knew nothing about it. And so obviously I got through Sunday with the children, and Monday came and I dropped them off at school, and I caught the train into the school, from the school ground into work. And then I thought to myself, now how do I end? Do I text, ring or email? And I'll admit, I took the gutless way out. I sent him a text. I thought it's short, sharp and done. And you know what? I did that, and oh my goodness, it was a relief off my shoulders. So I got into work, and back then, obviously, mobile phones weren't used back then like they are today. And so obviously by the end of the day, I caught the train home, and I could see he'd text so many times, and I didn't read them all. I just opened it, yep, sent his name, and thought, no, I've dealt with that. I don't need to deal with that anymore. And so I got home, it was 6 o'clock, and Zach was at basketball training this night, and Ashlyn and Gabby were there. Gabby always started cooking dinner for because I got home at that time, and that was fine, speaking to them, and saying, how's your day, girls, da-da-da. And then there was a knock at the door. And I could see through the little bit of the glass panel that it was, and I'm sorry for you gentlemen out there, and I know I'm stuttering here, but if it's okay if I use the word perpetrator, because I just don't like putting him in any other category. So I do apologise in advance for using that word. But I could see it was the perpetrator. And so I thought, for my own self and teaching my children life skills, I actually thought, no, Simone, you've got to speak to whoever comes to you and acknowledge that they're there. So I did. I went and opened the door for him, and it was the first time I'd spoken to him all day since ending the relationship. And he said, can we speak about this? And I said, yeah, okay, sure, no dramas. And knowing he's seen the girls in the kitchen bench, he said, can we go into your bedroom, please? And I said, yes, we can. So putting it in picture that I'm still in my work clothes, my high heels, and I walked in first to into my bedroom, and he was asking me questions, why can't we keep it going and whatnot. And I replied and just said, look, can't we just be really good friends? I said, look, I can't give our relationship 110% in what you deserve. And getting to know this perpetrator, he'd actually said that he hadn't been married and no children. And I actually believe that because it was in real estate, and I knew how busy it was in real estate, weekend work and different things. So me walking in and saying, not being able to give him 110%, the next section, I fell on the ground, and the investigators aren't quite sure whether he pushed me to the ground or I tripped on my high heels. But you'll see a bit of tape on my arm here, in which I'd actually had my arm up. And next minute I look up, and a baseball bat. He had a baseball bat, and it was coming down on me while I was on the ground. And he hit me 3 or 4 times in my arm. I knew it was broken. And he'd shut the door. And being a single mum, I never actually liked the bedrooms door shut of their bedrooms, because I like to hear if the kids were, burping, vomiting, on the phone or whatever, like just to know if they're well or unwell or whatever. And so I could actually hear the girls at the door because they knew it was wrong that the door was shut. And so I said, girls, come in and help mummy. And they came in, and Gabby looked at me as if saying, Mum, you can get up, you can get out and do anything. And I did try and get off the ground, but because my arm was broken, it just collapsed. And I said, no, go and get mummy help. And so the girls did run out, and this is where in my outlook in life now, and it's such an honour to speak to the Greek community tonight, is because whatever nationality we are, we need to be one. And on one side of myself where I lived, I had a family of Samoans, and on the other side, I had South African couple. And obviously, because of the age of my children, there was never any domestic violence in my home. And they thought the girls were just playing, for starters, and they're going, no, mummy needs help, mummy needs help. And so in this short time, so this was 6:06, this perpetrator came in, till 6:16, which if we can just go to the next slide, but quickly prior to we moving to the next slide, I just want you to know that this is going to be myself at my worst, but please take it in a positive. I'm here to tell you and how we can survive and how we can stop domestic violence. So I won't leave it up for a long time, but I'll quickly show it to you. So from 6:06 to 6:16, this is how I ended up fighting for my life. I actually endured 45 to 50 hits to the right side of my face with the baseball bat that affected my arm. And since then, I've actually lost my vision in my right eye, which is why I do look a little bit funny. I have now since had 52 operations. I've got an implant here on my cheekbone. My whole jaw was all smashed in, and obviously I've got skin grafts all over my body to replace things on my face. So at this stage, I don't have to have any more operations, but they may have to do one more to actually remove the dead eye that's behind this eye here. So I'll just move off of that photo, so we're not looking at that one, if that's okay, Costa. If we're going to slide the next one. So I'll just speak on that last slide, even though it's not up now because it's not a very nice one to look at. So my girls went out the front and were getting the help. So they eventually, Gabby did dial 000 once, and they actually did hang up on her because they, lost her line, but they've quickly reconnected for her, and the services were amazing. They were there before we know it. And the big Samoans actually had to come in from next door and put their life in danger and get the perpetrator under the guidance of the police, obviously, and they weren't actually allowed to do anything to the perpetrator. But they told me that Simone, they said, when we had to get him out the front, we put our knee into his back and planted his face into the dirt until the divvy van comes. So they were really happy with what they did then. And on the South African lady, she actually worked in pathology on the other side. And because the children, when they ran out the front, they said, Mummy's got a broken arm, Mummy's got a broken arm. They didn't get to see a lot of my face the way I was. But so the South African lady came in and said, get me ice for Mummy's arm. And then she actually seen me, and she knew to get dry towels. She actually wrapped dry towels around my head to keep my brain in my skull as much as possible, because she knew wet towels would actually kill me instantly. And not quite sure how I was, and obviously the specialists don't know, but I was still actually conscious at this time, and I was actually talking to her, and she said that and she had to put it in a statement that I was trying to get up to go and finish cooking the kids' dinner, and she said, no, we'll just get them takeaway later. And then obviously I thought my nose was running, but she said it was just actually blood dripping down my face, because she couldn't actually see my face. It was just mush from everywhere. And I mustn't have been, I was asking about my eyes. Why can't I see? Why can't I see? And she just said it was just mush. But anyway, moving forward, from then, obviously, that first night going into hospital, they didn't give me any chance to survive, to be honest with you. So my children were taken from the police station to up to say goodbye to me at 2 a.m. on the 26th of September 2012, because they said that I couldn't wouldn't be able to get through the night. And this is another area of the story how it just doesn't affect the victim. That date might seem irrelevant to some of you, but it was actually my middle daughter Ashlyn's birthday on the 26th of September, and that's something now she's about to turn 21 next month. And I always get a bit teary when I talk about this, but she remembers that night having to say goodbye to her mum and thinking that she'll never get to see me or speak to me again for her ongoing birthdays. So that was okay. I did fight and I got through that night, and then obviously went back to theatre the next day, and they had to come in the next night as well. But this time they gave me 4% chance of surviving. And they said if I did survive, I may be a vegetable or tube fed. I'll, be laying in a bed. They weren't expecting much out of me at all. So the first 10 days were really, really rocky. And obviously the 9th day, I did go a bit backwards after getting to that stage. And they said that I must have just been having a bad day. I was still in induced coma, obviously, at this stage, and to get through. But I did pull through. And one thing that I do want to say about going back at the house, my children always said that I looked dead at when they put me in the back of the ambulance. And Dr. Stephen Rashford, who is the leading ambulance surgeon doctor in Queensland, he actually came and saved my life at the scene, and I've met him personally and spoken with him. And he actually said, to answer the children's question, that he had to put me in induced coma at the scene because with any I'm no doctor or no nurse or anything, but I've learned a lot about our bodies over the years. And he actually said that with any damage to your brain, it's like, the swelling of it would have just killed me. But by the time I got to hospital, because it was swelling so quickly. But this photo that is in front of you now, yes, it does look horrible. That is a photo of my skull. And this is where I turn my story into a positive, is because he said, this Dr. Stephen Rashford also said that if I didn't get 45 to 50 blows to my skull, he goes, I wouldn't have survived. If I'd only got 5 or 10, my skull wouldn't be shattered like this. And the positive is, because it was shattered so much, when my brain was swelling, it was moving with it. Hence why when my South African neighbour came in and my face was mush, it was still able to be saved. I was still able to be saved because of so much damage that had actually been done to my face. So obviously the right side of my face is all, obviously titanium plated and held together, with screws, titanium, etc. But, I'm here to tell my journey, and touch wood, I've had neurological assessments done, and I know I've got a smile on my face because I'm just so thrilled that I've got no neurological deficits, no brain injury, whatsoever, long, short term, different things. And when I say about my brain, I've actually been told little tips on the road by anyone, do this or do that. And I was told to take vitamin D for my brain injury. And you know what? I started taking Ostal and vitamin D. That's what I was told. And so I've been taking it now for 6 years. And I reckon my brain's sharper now than what it was beforehand. So that's just something that, a bit of advice for anyone to get out there, it works for me. And also taking different supplements along the way has been amazing for me as well. And I listen and learn from each and every person that does take on it and give me advice. So from, my story is vicious and happens so quickly, over a period of 9 months. But, it's really opened me up now. And yes, I do know what domestic violence is and how it can change from, little red flags into something so big, just because I didn't want to be in the relationship. So moving forward onto my next slide, obviously my recovery is with me. This is where I suppose I say I'm a prisoner in my own body for the rest of my life. And you'll see me that I've been dubbing my eye here. and Brad's in Brisbane, and that's where I want to be. I do actually fly back and have done since moving to Brisbane, since moving back to Victoria. The only reason I moved back to Victoria is because my mum and dad and my two sisters live in the country town Horsham where I'm at now, just to rebuild myself and the children's lives. But since then, since 2013, I have been flying back to Brisbane every 7 to 10 days for treatment. And obviously now with the lockdowns over the past 18 months, I've found it really, really tough to get back there. I've even done isolation up in Brisbane where I had to, go into quarantine, but they were able to take me to my appointments and different things like that. And now that we're in lockdown, I've been, I'm in the process of actually getting a new eye lens because my face has changed so much with all the operations. This one now just leaks. Look, I've got to push that out a bit, and hopefully I've rescheduled everything for the 14th of September. So even if we're out of lockdown, at least I might be able to get a medical exemption and get back up there again for my treatment, because it's, having my jaw all smashed in, I will never be like a normal female, like you beautiful ladies out there, which your jaw width is like 40 to 45 mil. Mine was only opening 2 mil at one stage. And I just want to let you know on a little story on that. When I was in the brain rehab of recovering, my son came in and I was allowed to go out with a carer and him and go out for dinner. And of course, he took me to McDonald's and he said to me, "What do you want, Mummy?" And I said, "I don't know, son." I said, "I can't even fit a chip in my mouth." And you know how skinny McDonald's chips are. And so I had 2 McDonald's sundaes because I could just slurp them through. And he goes, "Mummy, that's not fair that you get to have sundae before your main dessert before your main meal." But that's I suppose you just don't realise. And I take everything for granted, even my hair now. But my jaw was like stiff as a board, and I couldn't get it opened any further. Under surgery, they got it to 19 mil. So I hate to know what Dr. Anthony Lynham did to my jaw in surgery, but my perseverance on it, I've got it to 30 mil now. So I'll never be able to, pick up a sandwich or different things like that. But I've learnt to live around that. And as you can see, I've rocked many a weird and wonderful hairdos. But I still always manage a smile. And this operation here, I actually had to have a section of my skull removed for 6 months because an infection got into my skull, and they were worried it was going to go all through my body. So I wasn't able to do anything. I couldn't go and see the kids at school. I just had to be virtually homebound. And I actually had nurses come to my home because I had intravenous drip through my body to change my antibiotics, etc. as well. But the photo on the right-hand side, you can see I've got a smile on my face. And as you can see, my arms are both out of action, and I actually had a drip in my foot as well because the operation was 16 hours after the neurosurge team come in and put my skull back in, and obviously the plastics team. And a nurse came in and said, "Oh, would you like me to wash your hair, Simone?" And I didn't know what they'd done to me. And I said, "Oh, that'd be amazing." And she goes, "Oh, would you like me to braid it?" And I thought I was a princess, to be honest with you. And I was so appreciative of what she did to me. And then, obviously I was shocked when I eventually did see the photo of myself. But do you know what? I just can't thank the people in my recovery to get me where I am today, because it's just been like you have got the support there. You're not alone in any of this, to what I've gone through. So as I say, my recovery is for the rest of my life, whether it's the plastics team, my jaw team, my eye team. So it's all the only positive is I've been able to let go of the neurosurge team because, they can't find anything wrong with my brain, etc. And obviously my head is all impact closed up now. So that's the best thing. But it's going to be a long haul for the rest of my life, but I take it as a positive now. And knowing I look different, I give out in different ways, and that's being a part of your community tonight and feeling at home and feeling that, you know, I'm wanted in your group as well. So, yeah, that I can't thank you enough. So, yeah, let's look out for each other. But next slide, please. So, obviously, this is where I'm not normally a speaker. Like I was at school or anything. I was never someone to get up in from. I'm a very humble person. Just in general, yeah, I don't say too much at different things, but this is something now is I realise what even the children want to do in this space, in making a change in domestic violence and looking out for their peers. And especially when I'm presenting at schools, you'd be surprised the amount of young men that come up. They won't say anything. They'll just give me a cuddle. And as the epidemic that we're in now, it actually makes me feel really ill for not only the people who have got COVID and are sick, but young children, middle-aged children. Going to school is a safe place for them. And while they're at home having homeschooling, it just makes me cringe. I just think, oh my goodness, you know, are they okay? You know, and it's the same as a workplace. As Brad said, it's a safe place for many women to go to. And being involved in many different corporates now around Australia, you'll be surprised that people will come up to you after and they'll say, thank you so much for that, Simone. I'm getting in trouble at home, you know. I've got to wear certain clothes or I've got to do this, you know. I can't be at the hairdressers for too long. I'm always on watch. And the staff at work don't even know that this poor lady is going through hell, if I can say. And, yeah, this is where we need to really focus in. And I know a lot of policies and procedures have changed in the workplace, which is absolutely fantastic. You know, and I you know, can't commend those teams on what they're doing. The middle photo you'll see there, that was actually at Ambulance Queensland head office when I first got to meet Dr. Stephen Rashford, which was just so overwhelming. I was just really delighted and so proud. You know, being a White Ribbon, well, back then I was an advocate, now that I'm an ambassador, but, you know, just so proud to know what they were doing in the workplace as well. And my last slide there, White Ribbon Australia, before the closure, they actually asked me if I would like to run the New York Marathon. And I was like, wow, I've got an operation I've got to do. I've never ran a marathon before, let alone the world's biggest marathon. And do you know what? I did it. I crossed over that finishing line. I didn't care what I came, what time I ran. All I wanted to do, I wanted to complete it for us women and children here in Australia. And I didn't want to walk a step. And I as you can see, you couldn't wipe the smile off my face. But yeah, it was the most rewarding thing from the bottom of my heart, going from the brink of death to run the world's biggest marathon. I was chuffed to be able to do that. And I suppose that's in, you know, with what Brad has said, what we need to do to make a change, you know, all standing up and speaking about it and getting involved in community gatherings. We can all do this together, and all the little steps, and we can really knuckle down and stop this one death per week of women or children. And, you know, I suppose that's the saddest thing, is if a child lost their life, but sometimes it's the children that lose their lives and not the mother, because it's, you know, it's getting at the mother in a different way. So these are things that what I can do to help. I just want to help in every direction. And yeah, doing the New York Marathon was just a positive for us here in Australia to go, that we can achieve and kick goals if we want to, and let's keep kicking them in the domestic violence space. Next slide, please. So as Brad said about getting men into make the change, I'm now involved in 3 football clubs here in Australia, and that's obviously Carlton here, the Boys in the Respects program, and they actually donated $10,000 back of their money towards the domestic violence respects program that they hold at the club to get out to schools and corporates, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm involved with Collingwood, being their ambassador, and they're big into, you know, all the football and netball, which is just really good. They actually get into the have a Symphony shop in the CBD, so they help the women on the streets, get them into homes and all that type of thing. And also the Western Bulldogs, who I'm heavily involved with the Bounce Back program, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner here, with Bob Murphy and Jake Edwards. And to be able to go around to the bigger corporates like TAC, and obviously Bob speaks on leadership, Jake speaks on mental depression, and I speak on domestic violence, which is three key things in a work environment that we need to get the message out. So knowing that what from my end, I'm working with men, I'm really enjoying it, because you can see the faces in the workplaces that, yeah, this is good. And getting into even bigger corporates like the John Holland Group. Last year I sat and did a Zoom like I am now, and I haven't done a face-to-face with them yet, but I know in maybe next year, hopefully it will be. That was John Holland in New South Wales, and the general manager, he was actually a male, and he said, Simone, I haven't got a question for you. He said, I wasn't expecting to sit in and hear what I've heard today. He said, but oh my goodness, I applaud you. And he goes, young lady, I don't think he realised how old I was, but he goes, young lady, he goes, I know we'll be changing our policies and procedures in our workplace. He goes, because I had no idea that work was a safe place for a lot of women. So, you know, kicking little goals like that along our way, we've got to take it as a great initiative and keep running with it. So, you know, any little step, I know I keep reflecting back to Brad, but let's do those little initiatives, because those little kicking goals will soon make big changes in our numbers moving ahead. Next slide, please. So obviously the statistics aren't good, you know, around Australia or even the world. And it's sad to say, you know, that it's not just women, it's, you know, it's girls that are involved in our in our numbers as well. And, you know, it's like 1 in 3 experience domestic violence on a daily basis at home. And, you know I've spoken about my little red flags, and that's all it is a little red flag. And it doesn't matter what culture, you know, what nationality you are, what colour skin we've got to all stamp this out. And as I say, it's mentioned before, you know, work is a safe place, and children school is a safe place. So let's crunch these numbers down. And yes, well, you know, it'd be years before we get the death toll to 0, but you know, if we can make one little change, that's going to be fantastic. So I don't want to elaborate on that too much, but it is so important. What I've said tonight, if we can keep, you know, stamping out those little initiatives, we will make these small changes that are moving forward. Next slide, please. This is something that I've highlighted some of my little red flags. One big red flag is what I want to bring to your attention is how easy things can be stopped and slowed down. Is, you know how I said, he's a real estate agent, they have police checks. I said he hadn't been married and no children, he'd told me. Well, it's funny because after the assault actually took place on me, the court hearing wasn't till 2.5 years later, because my brain was still mush. And obviously the doctors are saying, no, she's not up to, you know, doing statements and things like that. And anyway, so, 2.5 years, I was out of the brain rehab and, you know, getting back to normal life, but still going in, you know, still to hospital to have surgery every 6 weeks and type of thing. But in that time, obviously the court hearing went through, and so his face was sort of splattered around the nation and on radio and da-da-da. Well, in that time, 2 wives actually contacted the investigators and told them that I'm a wife. He actually assaulted me. And another one rang in and said, I'm a wife. He assaulted me and my parents. My big point here, and I suppose I'm sorry if my voice change, is if that first wife had reported it at the time, I wouldn't be here speaking to you about domestic violence, because he would have had a bad name against his name, and he wouldn't have got his real estate license. And this is the importance of speaking up. I wouldn't be going through this. I wouldn't look like this. I wouldn't have had to have 52 operations. This wouldn't be a thing that I'm living with for the rest of my life if that first wife had spoken up. And in the last 10 months now, the second wife's sister, who the sister lives in Sydney, she actually emailed me through my website and wanted to, obviously reprimand me on give me acknowledgement on what I'm doing. And she went on to say that it actually took them 12 months after he assaulted the second wife's parents as well. Actually took them 12 months to get her out safely. And she said it wasn't just our family either that to get her out safely. It was a community of people to get her out safely. So that's how the control he had and manipulating her, etc., that these guys can have. And that's the importance of, yes, my little red flags were nothing. He never raised a fist at me, never said the word SHIT in front of myself or the children. He was a gentle giant, as in he would still open the car door and everything for myself and the children. So these little things might seem nothing, but please, let's look at any little situation and look at any little red flag and don't sweep them under the carpet. Speak up like I did to my friend. I asked her how to get out of the relationship. I wasn't embarrassed because I just had a gut feeling that it wasn't okay. So all these little red flags are to deal with me, like the stealing and controlling behaviours and, the telling lies. So let's work on this as a team. And I said that's where I go back to schools, and it's actually rewarding going back to schools consecutive after consecutive years, because I say, let's do a mural in your library of red flags. And do you know what? It's actually rewarding, even speaking to preppies, because they put their hand up all the time, and that then by asking the questions, then the counsellors and whatever in the room know that they're having trouble at home. And by them doing a mural at school, they will come up with a lot of different red flags that me or you wouldn't even know that are happening at home. So please, zone in on anyone's, red flag, and don't just ask people, once or twice, are you okay? Whether you're in the workplace or at a community function, wherever you are, be a nagging mum like me and ask, 5 or 6 times, because that person, if they say something about a little red flag, will eventually say, look, last night he did swing at me and missed or something. And that's how they keep, unraveling these little red flags. So if you can take anything from tonight from me, please, let's look out for any little red flags. I'd really appreciate that. Next slide, please. Obviously, this is me, and once again, I get, my voice. All I was trying to say was, no, I don't want to be in a relationship. I even admitted I couldn't give him 110%. And speaking up is something we should be able to do. Us women were put on this earth for a reason, just as much as men and women were. So I'm not here speaking about hatred for men at all. Men and women, we're equal. We've just got to be one in this fight against domestic violence. And if we can just be a team, a whole big team, that's what I want to. I want to, make you all the bigger person. And yes, we can say no. Let's just stand up. And as I say, I'm not a speaker, and you're getting my life story, tonight. And I want you. Let's all just be one and make a change in this space, please. Let's just break that silence. Next slide, please. obviously, this looking out for each other's, which I spoke about a little bit about on the red flags as well. This is something that I find people have lost a bit of respect for each other, and this is where we need to bring it back in and double check with each other. You know, as you can see there, you know, identifying the signs of your co-workers. You know, and I'll just use names for example. I'll use myself. You know, if I was going into work, I wish I could go into work, but and you know, I was wearing high neck like I am tonight and long sleeve on a 40-degree days. Please ask the question, are you okay? Because, you know, she could be covering something up. You know, if she's looking really tired and you know, hasn't got her hair or makeup done, or, you know, she's not wearing the same sort of spark clothes that she would normally wear, you know, ask the question. You know, she may not be allowed to look good anymore to go to work. If she's taking more sick days off, he might be telling her, you're not going in today. You know, if she's saying, oh, I've got this with a man today, I've got to go to a meeting with a man, he might not be letting her do that. It's the same as, you know, going to a woman going to a hairdresser. He might drop her off and say, I'll be back in 20 minutes and give her $50. She's on a tight scale, you know, whereas, and this is where hairdressers can look out for the lady as well. So it's all interacting with each other and, you know, spotting those uncertainty points and asking that, are you okay? You know, don't be embarrassed because there's obviously something underlying underneath the poor victim that needs help and she's struggling. And as I say, you know, you ask her 5 or 6 times, is she okay? And she will crack. And then you'll be able to zoom in and help and, you know, go to the service providers and there'll be, you know, different areas that can help her. And do you know what? And that's where I suppose I felt with my journey now, I'm not alone. I know in different aspects of my life that, you know, whether I'm in the hospital or, you know, I'm going, you know, to a function or something, everyone will always double check, are you okay? Have you arrived okay? How's your medical treatment going? So we're not alone on these different instances where we are placed, you know, on day-to-day activity. Next slide, please. No, anyway, I think that the next slide, yep. So this is just an overall action of different things that I've brought to your attention today. But my main objective of this was the importance of the red flags. Once again, I know I'm zoning back to that, but how they stand out, like, and it doesn't have to be very much writing there at all. And that's where I'd love you to all just look out for the red flags and, you know, put it all in together into like a little box, I could say, and let's all get these initiatives out. Let's all join as a team and let's make change in this space to stamp out this domestic violence, especially in this tough time that we're living in at present, that, you know, we can't get out, you know, the services, it's all, you know, even I still have counselling as I speak to you today. And even that, I know it's by phone. It's still sitting here at home. I can't get there in person. So life is tough in all directions for us all, but let's just go that little bit of extra to make it a safe place for, you know, our next generations coming up, because we need to change this bicycle wheel so they can get back into thinking that life is normal. You know, if little Johnny's seeing every day what dad's doing to mum, or even if he's got sisters, we don't want them thinking that this is the norm. We need to break that silence and say, no, this is where we just have respect all the time for women and children in general. So I just want to, say thank you so much. I'm so honoured to be able to present to you, and I look forward to being involved in your community in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone, so much for that. That was wonderful, very insightful. What a journey, what an honour for us. I'm going to pass it over to Penny, who will manage the Q&A, and then we'll take it from there. Penny.
Okay, terrific. So thank you so much, Simone. It was really an insightful presentation, particularly some of the discussion around red flags. So you talked quite a lot about, you know, the importance of red flags and you know, that women really need to be made aware of this so that they can then make decisions about you know, their relationship. But I've heard so many times people say, you know, why doesn't she leave? Even though women do notice the red flags. But I think that the question actually needs to be, why doesn't he let her leave? So what I want to hear from you is, what are your thoughts around that?
Do you know what? I will say. Sorry, I just need to. Yes, it is tough for a woman to leave, and obviously I get many women message me and say, Simone, what do I got to do to leave? I can't be here anymore. And you know, I tell them to get their paperwork, and because that's the stuff that is tough. You don't want to be left, and then you got to get on the phone to Centrelink and Medicare and all that. So if you've got all that in line, but it is tough to leave. You've got to make sure you've got the services involved at the same time to give you that support. Don't just leave alone because you don't know what you're ahead of. And if there's a lot of coercive control by the perpetrator at the same time, you know, that will also tamper, you know, your mental health as well. So, yes, I'm not going to say it's easy to leave, and I don't understand why he isn't just removed from the property. You know, if there's police involved and different things, it's unfair that, yes, the woman does have to leave all the time, and you know, she's got the children to be dealt with as well. So it's it's hard. You've got to make sure that you've. Sorry, I know I'm sort of jumping around a bit, but it's having the services involved, the support network. Don't be afraid, I suppose, is the biggest thing. Speak up, you know, get the community involved with you moving out, basically.
Yeah, that's really sage advice. And and the fact is that there are a lot of support services around now for women who are exiting domestic violence relationship crisis support services, which is really
it is there's a lot of, you know, hubs, orange doors and different things now. You know, orange doors are around Victoria, but you know, most service providers have all different services, whether it's counselling, domestic violence, you know, people, So that's, if you can get involved in any hubs like that, please do. Don't just walk out without getting someone to help you.
Yeah, thanks. That's terrific. We had Helen Edgley, thank you so much, has asked a question about how can family law be improved to support victims in the family violence journey?
Absolutely. And I've learnt that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the family law, in the domestic violence. It's over the years what I've worked out, that it's been taken for granted and not acknowledged as it should have been. Hence why now, you know, different areas of all different, whether it's, you know, property settlement, IVOs, children, it's not an easy process, and it all does, I'll be honest with you, it all does need to be revamped, if I can say, re-looked at, realigned with what's actually, you know, going on in today's world, especially, and I'm going to add child support in there as well. It all needs a big overhaul.
Yeah. Nicole DeCazos has asked, what happened to your perpetrator? Was there any sort of, you know, punitive action taken?
Absolutely. And this is where, getting back to the DV situation, why I know it needs a big overhaul, is he, because I was in Queensland, he actually got life for attempted murder in Queensland.
Wow.
And 2 years ago, just under 2 years ago, I spoke at a National Police Forum for Australia and New Zealand. And obviously I was guest speaker there, speaking on my story again, and it was really interesting to hear that our states aren't aligned with each other. And I was on a table with some Victorian and South Australian investigators, and the Victorian investigator actually said, Simone, lucky that you were in Queensland when this happened, and he did get life for attempted murder, because that's a great sentence. He said if he was here, he might have got 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's where it's all different. And look, I got a good sentence. He got justice, which was great. He still pleads not guilty to today, and tried to go back and do a second hearing, but then it was going back about 4 years ago when the Baden Clay scenario was turned back up to murder from when it was dropped down to manslaughter, and he actually withdrew his application then because he knew he wasn't going to get off. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. There's a fair few questions coming through around reporting as well. So there's some questions around, are the Defence Forces and the police, do you think, better at identifying domestic violence cases now and reporting cases sooner? What's your view on that? Yeah.
Absolutely. Please, I cannot emphasise enough, report any little red flag. And even I've done a lot of work with, new police kits coming through, and so they're being drummed into, do not push any little red flag under the carpet. Every little red flag needs to be acknowledged and written down, because that's how we're going to get an end result. Because if it just keeps getting, swished down, that's how we're getting, murdered victims that, these guys are out on bail and, nothing is being reprimanded on them. So, yeah, please keep reporting, even if it's to your service worker, so then they can get it documented. That's from me personally, I can't give that enough. Being that third wheel myself, and those 2 other wives not reporting it. I'm a mum. I've got sisters, aunties, etc. As we all do, we've got all our female. We don't want our next generations coming through to be a third wheel if there hasn't been a reports in. So we need to get that into, our next generations. Report anything. Don't be ashamed.
Yeah, that's so true. That's a really good point that you make. Removing the stigma around speaking out about the issue is really, really important.
Absolutely.
So there's a question here that's come through about, so we know that domestic violence isn't only the physical.
No, not at all.
Okay, so we know that there's psychological abuse and financial and spiritual and legal, etc.
Absolutely.
So there's a question here around, is psychological abuse more common than physical violence, or do they go hand in hand?
No, do you know what? I suppose the psychology abuse is a bit like all the coercive control, and that's becoming more and more out there as well, in the public. Women are speaking up about, I think I've used the hairdressing sample a couple of times, but, not letting women, we got $50 to do the groceries with this week, don't spend any more type of thing. So, look, it's hand in hand, really. It's, I suppose it's, if there's no physical bruising, he could have raped her or something like that to get back at her as well. And these are the things that, we don't see. He could have burnt her, he could have strangled her, it's a much of a muchness. I couldn't give you figures on all that type of thing, but anything is just a no-go zone, basically, because we've just got to save everybody else.
Yeah, and the impact is still just as significant, whether it's
absolutely. And of course, if you get told, you're a piece of fat lard every day, you begin to think it, don't you? Like, you're ugly, look at you, you shouldn't, you'd be embarrassed to go out in the public like that. If you're being told it every day, you're going to feel horrible, aren't you? And that's where I acknowledge that I do look different, but I'm not going to, I could have, been in a dark hole for the rest of my life. And, not got out and spoken about it. But I want to help make a change, and it's giving some love back into where we can make a change.
Okay, thank you so much, Simone. It's been really, really insightful. There's also a question that's come through about so when women do come forward, and this is from Iris Papathanasiou, who works for the Nels Cosmos.
Okay.
And she was involved in writing one of the articles that preceded the event today. So she's asking, how protected are the victims when they issue intervention orders? So when women do come forward and they actually report the domestic violence, arguably they're in quite a lot of danger when they do that, when they do come forward.
Absolutely,
yeah. So how protected are victims?
They are. I was going to say they are protected. Obviously on an IVO, there are terms that the perpetrator's got to abide by, and one thing that the victim does have to promise to do, which is, it's a little bit of can go into guilt and should I ring up or shouldn't I? But if they feel that the perpetrator's stalking them or looking through windows or knocking at their door or something, they've got to report it still. So it's you've got to be strong on that as well. So once you do put the IVO on them, you still got to report. If he's breaching it, you've got to. I can't emphasize that enough. You've got to still, because otherwise the IVOs aren't worth the piece of paper they're on if we're not going to report the perpetrators that are still breaching the orders.
And can you talk to us a little bit around what are the consequences of the AVOs the intervention orders being breached? Are you able to just very briefly?
So obviously, if they are breached, then the police will get the evidence of if it's 1, 2, or 6 breaches, and then the perpetrator actually has to go back to court and face the magistrate and obviously plead guilty or not guilty to those breaches, which then they get so many, and I'm not quite sure how many breaches it is, but if they breach so many times, then they do jail time. So it gets on to that. And that's why I'm saying reporting that the IVO has been broken, like if he's come within the 50-metre radius or anything like that, it needs to be reported, because then he still does get dealt with the consequences down the track. And if he pleads guilty to the breaches, he will get a fine and he will get obviously a mark against his name for those breaches for ongoing life once he's finished his IVO.
Yeah, there is a register now for perpetrators. I don't like using that word either, but there is a register.
Yeah. Which is sad, but that's the way we've got to go.
Saying it really, yeah. There's also a question here around what is so it's come through to the panel. What is the best way a woman can protect herself from further harm if she finds herself in a controlling relationship? Is there a first place of contact? So we're talking about, what services are available for women who identify a red flag early in the relationship and need support to extricate themselves from that situation. So, they might be talking to their friends, etc. But, how do they actually get the support and the confidence to move, And
that's where the 1-800 respect line is amazing, because they not only point you in the direction, if it needs to be escalated, they will escalate it over the phone to a next service online. Yeah. Is that what you're meaning?
That's what I'm talking. So women who are, identifying that there's an issue early on, and so it's all the same services. So it's 1-800 respect, safe steps, lifeline.
Yeah, so anything like that will be able to help you.
Another question here from our friend Glenn. He's asking, what resources are available for men who recognise problematic attitudes to self-report? So we've talked about women, but men are also aware of their behaviours and their actions. And sometimes they know that, you know, they're out of control and they're being controlled. It's a fantastic question, Glenn. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do we what sort of services are available for men to get help to correct their own behaviours? I think that's a really pertinent and important question.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of places have the men's behavioural change programs now, that are, you know, easy to act. And I actually know a young gentleman who did go in one, and he realised that, you know, alcohol and different things were playing havoc with him. And he did the program. And you know what? I said, I took my hat off to him and I said, thank you for telling me that. That's awesome, because he didn't have to tell me that. But, you know, for a young gentleman to have gone and done this men's behavioural change program, and
And I think the point as well is that people are capable of changing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
And we have to maintain that lens, I think, when we discuss the issue. I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
So I've been given the wind up.
Sorry.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually hand over to Tammy to conclude the evening. So over to you, Tammy.
Thank you, Penny. Simone, I wish I could give you a virtual hug on behalf of everyone at the Greek Community. Please accept the virtual hug. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. We can't wait to have you at the Greek Centre. Brad, thank you for talking through the 3 steps, and the Greek Community would be honoured to sign up as a community partner with White Ribbon Australia and vow to look at step 2 and 3. So thank you for inspiring us to do that. Also, to anyone listening out there, to everyone listening out there tonight, please donate to White Ribbon Australia. There's a link somewhere, or go on their website. We encourage you all to donate. So thank you, everyone. Don't know if, Brad, do you want to have any final words for us tonight?
Oh, no, thank you so much for having us and for partnering with White Ribbon Australia. Thank you, Simone, for sharing so incredibly. And it's just been a real honour to be with you. And I can't wait until all this lockdown malarkey is over and we can be together in person. I'll be there as soon as I can.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad. Thank you to everyone for tuning in tonight. Thank you to White Ribbon Australia. Thank you to everyone. Take care. Well done, guys.
Thanks, gang.
Am I unmuted? Hello?
Thank you. I think we're all...
Are we?
He's just saying, hang on, I think.